Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is Ryan from Movies with Ryan, and yes, another Saturday video. But today's video is special. Now, if you remember a couple months ago, Tim from Tim Talks Talkies did a community list where everybody submitted a list of their top 25 movies of the 90s. He did a live stream, he compiled all the numbers, and we came up with the number one 90s movie according to the community. Tim is at it again. This time we are doing the 80s. So link down below to the video. Here's a little picture wherever I put it at. Get him his list. All the instructions how to get him a list is in that video. Your top 25 movies of the 80s from 25 to 1. Now I'm making a video to show off my top 25, but you can do it however. You can DM him on Instagram, send him a list. You can email him a list. You can comment your list down below on this video or on his video explaining everything. That way he can get it. Or you can just word of mouth it to somebody in the community and they can get it to him. But you have until the end of this month, the 31st, 11:59 to get him that list. And then next month, we're going to be doing another live stream. He's going to have a two-parter. On Friday, he's going to do 50 to 26, everything that just missed the cut, because there was such a demand of that from the last time, like where things fell. And then Saturday, he's going to do 25 to 1, and we're going to figure out what is the top 80s movie from the community. Now, last time he got a 160 list or 180, something like that. Let's beat it, folks. Everybody out there, word of mouth, get it out, let everybody know to get Tim your 80s list. Stay tuned. Let's count down my 25 of the 80s from 25 to 1. Now, recently I did that Rad 9 movies challenge from the Rad Pack, where I mentioned my 9 Rad movies that made me. I grew up in the 80s. I watched a lot of 80s movies, so this list is like very near and dear to me. There was a couple movies on there that I watched all the time, and number 25 and number 24 make this list. 1987. Coming in at number 25, G.I. Joe, the movie. Played with the toys all the time. Loved G.I. Joe. When they said they were making a movie of this, had to watch it. This is one of my favorites of the 80s. And coming in at number 24, also one of those Rad 9s, Transformers the movie from 1986. Love this movie. I cried in the theater because they wiped out all the Autobots that I loved, and they reintroduced us to new Autobots, and of course, new Decepticons. But that's my number 25 and number 24 as I drop my Steelbook. 1988. Number 23 is my favorite Western of the 80s. Great young cast. Kiefer Sutherland, Emilio Estevez, Lou Diamond Phillips, Two and a Half Men. I can't think of his name now. Charlie Whatchamadoodle, Tiger Blood. Anyway, Young Guns coming in at number 23. Love this Western. It's just action-packed. It's funny. It's got a good story to it. Love this movie. So coming at 23, Young Guns. 1988. My list has a lot of 1988 and I believe a lot of 1984 movies, or maybe 85. But 88 seemed to be the year that I gravitated towards on my movies. Coming at number 22 was a fantastic movie that blended animation with live action. And that's none other than Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Your perverted little rabbit, your sexy little Jessica, and then your guy that's trying to take down a bad guy. I love this movie. I remember seeing it in the movie theaters, and I must say I was blown away by it because at the time you really didn't see live action and animation together. So coming in at number 22, 1988, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Number 21, 1985. This is my second favorite. Yeah, my second favorite 80s Schwarzenegger movie. And that is none other than Commando. Of course, this is a nice little steelbook. You're going to see a lot of steelbooks in this video. But I just love this movie. It's cheesy, over-the-top fun. The guns never run out of bullets. It's an insane story. There's no way a normal human being could actually do the feats that he does through this and survive. But love this movie. It's always a fun watch. So that's why it comes in at number 21. Number 20, 1984. Now, I watched this. I think we rented it. And I was blown away that my parents let me rent this because it was kind of profane. I think it's rated R. Is it rated R? Yes, it is rated R. So this was like one of my first rated R movies I seen as a young kid. And like I said, I'm surprised my family or my mom and dad let me see this. Enough rambling. 1984, Axel Foley, Beverly Hills Cop. I can't talk. There will be no editing in this video because I don't edit. But this movie is so fun. Detroit cop goes out to LA because a friend got murdered. He's trying to figure out what's going on. He recruits the two dumb cops, and it's just nonstop fun. I love. I can't even think of his name. You got to be kidding me. Eddie Murphy. Jesus. It's going to be a long video, folks, if I can't remember names. Eddie Murphy. I love this. So Beverly Hills Cop, 1984, comes in at number 20. Number 19, 1986. Love this movie. It's a very good coming-of-age movie. There's a lot of dynamic in it. Based on a Stephen King story. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's got to be Stand By Me. How can you not love this cast? Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Jerry O'Connell, Kiefer Sutherland. Again, Kiefer was the man during the 80s. But Stand By Me. Great story about 4 kids out traveling to see a dead body and all the things that they come by. And just, it's a great time. Great coming of age story. And that's why it comes in at number 19 on my top 25 of the 80s. 18. Another movie from Eddie Murphy, 1988. Coming to America. What more can I say about this movie? Prince Akeem comes to America. He falls in love with a girl, and shenanigans ensue. The cast in this is great. The story in it's great. The humor in it's great. You cannot go wrong with Coming to America. Number 17, 1986. Even though there's a movie that ranks higher in my list, this is my favorite John Carpenter movie. And it is none other than Big Trouble in Little China. I used to watch this all the time when I was a kid. It's just a great, funny story. A little bit of action and all that. A little bit of the Asian arts in it. That's probably why I like it so much. A lot of great one-liners and all that. But Big Trouble in Little China, it comes in at my number 17 of my top 25 of the 1980s. 16. 1984. I remember seeing this in the movie theaters. This was a big deal when it came out. Special effects were supposed to be top notch. It's got comedians in it that were on their game at the time. And that's none other than Ghostbusters. Who does not like Ghostbusters? Now, I know it's not high on my list, but there's a lot of great movies in the 80s. But this had to come in at number 16. The Ghostbusters. 15, 1985. 85 was a great year. Actually, the whole 80s was a great year. It was a great era, a great decade. But 1985, at number 15, brings us The Goonies. Another coming-of-age story. You've got a lot of great actors, young actors in here. They got to find the gold. One-Eye Willie's gold. The Fratellis, I believe it is chasing them down. And it's just a great, fun time. It really, if you were a kid during this time watching this, it really opened up your imagination and the possibilities of what you could find being in an adventure. So Goonies comes in at number 15. Number 14, 1980. Barely gets in the 80s. Again, this was on my Rad 9. I watched this all the time when it came on TV. All the time. It is one of my favorite 80s movies. And that's none other than Jake and Elwood in the Blues Brothers. They're on a mission from God. They're trying to get Chicago all sorts of musical shenanigans and car chases come about. You can't go wrong with this movie. Just a good time. Belushi and Aykroyd are great in this. They're on top of their game again. Fun time. Number 13. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. This movie I didn't like at first. I didn't really get it because I was young. But it was one of my dad's favorite movies, and he was a Vietnam vet. And as I've gotten older, I understand this movie a lot better, and I like it a lot more now than what I used to. In fact, it's probably my favorite in the whole franchise. And that's none other than First Blood, Rambo Part 1. And, you know, it's Sylvester Stallone playing the Vietnam vet that's come back, that can't make it in life, that's been put down and all that, and he finally just breaks. And the people that try to break him pay dearly. But Rambo, again, 1982, my number 13 pick in my top 25 of my favorite 80s. Number 12, 1983. This is probably my second favorite Al Pacino performance behind Heat. And that is none other than Scarface in this gigantic box. I mean, look at this thing. It's as big as my head. If you want to know how big my head is, own this product and you can get a side-by-side comparison. But Scarface, this was the epitome of out-of-reach movies as a kid in the 80s, because your parents didn't want you to see it because it was about a drug dealer. There was murdering and killing and all sorts of stuff going in this movie. It was very graphic, very vulgar. But this movie is a classic, and I love it a lot. Al Pacino's portrayal of Tony Montana, or Montana. It's Joe Montana. Anyway, is great. And just overall, yeah, it's a long movie. It may not be the best movie, but it is my number 12 favorite movie from the 80s. Number 11 comes from another big franchise. The first movie in this is a great movie from the 70s. This is 1986. It took, I think, 7 years for a follow-up of the first one. And that's none other than Aliens. And I think Aliens is probably the better movie. It's more of a sci-fi action, whereas the first one's more of a sci-fi horror movie. I think I prefer Aliens just a little bit more, but you cannot deny Alien and Aliens were two of the best movies from the 70s and 80s. And that's why it comes in at my number 11 movie. Number 10. We're breaking the threshold. We're in the top 10 now. 1988. Again, this is a movie I talked about in my Rad 9. Michael Keaton. Beetlejuice. 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 This movie is so fun. And now it's 2023. It's getting a part 2. I know it's long overdue, but I think they're going to do a fantastic job with it. The cast that they have in it's great. The Beetlejuice. It's a fun time. It's raunchy. It's vulgar. And Michael Keaton killed it as Beetlejuice. Now, I've said it 3 times twice, so I should have 2 Beetlejuices appearing. But for my number 10, cracking it right now, top 10, 1988, Beetlejuice. Number 9, also 1988. Again, 1988 was a fantastic year for movies. If you can't tell, just on my short list, there's quite a few. But this movie introduced me to a more serious Bruce Willis, because before he was more of a comedian. Of course, he also had a music career. If you didn't know Bruce Willis had a music career, check it out. It's a little cringeworthy. But 1988's Die Hard. We get to meet John McClane, and this movie is just great. The everyday man that ends up beating the bad guy. And I don't care who you are, Ken. This is a Christmas movie. It all hinges on Nakatomi Plaza being closed for Christmas, minimal staffing for the plan to work. And I'm telling you right now, this movie is fantastic. If you've not seen Die Hard, I highly recommend it. But coming at number 9, 1988, Die Hard. Number 8, 1982, the other John Carpenter movie on my list. Now, yes, Big Trouble in Little China is my favorite movie, but there's no denying The Thing. It should be in the top 10 always. It should probably even be in the top 5 or maybe close to being number 1. But the special effects in this, the practical effects are fantastic. The story is great. Kurt Russell is great in this. And this is just an all-around fantastic movie. It's still talked about this day in depth. It's referenced in everything. So you cannot go wrong. Again, 1982's number 8, The Thing. Number 7, I slept on this movie. I think a lot of people slept on this movie. I think it became a cult classic after the fact, after the sequel came out, and people went back and looked at the first one. This is sci-fi horror. I consider it sci-fi horror, but it is 1984's The Terminator. I know, I need a cool steelbook. There are a couple of them out there. I'm looking into it. But, Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, the unstoppable killing machine, is fantastic. And Sarah Connor is played great by, I can't remember her name now, Linda Hamilton. There we go. And this is just all around good movie. And part 2 is just as good, if not better. But we wouldn't have part 2 if we didn't have part 1. And kudos for this movie being made. So that comes in at number 7. Number 6, 1984 again. So we got 84 and we got another 84 movie. This movie is solely responsible. Again, it was in my Rad 9 for me going into martial arts, not going into martial arts, liking martial arts movies and going into Asian cinema versus horror movies. That is none other than The Karate Kid. Again, great movie. Johnny moves to town. Johnny, it's not Johnny. Danielson. Daniel moves into town, gets into trouble. Mr. Miyagi comes along, tries to straighten him out, teaches him some karate, and then he illegally kicks somebody in the face and wins the championship. But again, 1984, The Karate Kid coming in at number 6. But here we go. The top 5. My top 5 favorite 80s movies. 1987. I should have not watched this as a kid. The opening scene of this is brutal. There's even some more brutal kills in the middle and towards the end of the movie. But it is where man meets machine and he shoots people in the dick. And that is none other than, again, 1987's RoboCop. Peter Weller does a great job playing RoboCop. This was just a futuristic sci-fi movie that really captured a lot of imagination when I was a kid. It's fun to watch. It still, stands the test of time, I think. And that's why it comes in at number 5. Again, number 4. I believe this was on my Red 9 as well. This is my Batman. And that's all I'm going to say. Michael Keaton is my Batman. Jack Nicholson really is my Joker. Heath Ledger did great as the Joker. Joaquin Phoenix did great as the Joker. But if you were born in the late 70s or in the early 80s and you lived your life through the 80s and you watched movies, this is pretty much your Batman. This is my go-to. I love this movie. And Michael Keaton transferring from Beetlejuice, a comedic role, into a more serious role as Batman was great. So 1989, Batman, coming in at number 4. Number 3. This was my favorite movie of all the movies they had made up until Rogue One was made. So this is now my second favorite Star Wars movies, but that's none other than Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. And yeah, I love The Empire Strikes Back. Not that I don't like the good guys in the Star Wars movies, but the bad guys are just so much more badass. I mean, Darth Vader, Darth Maul, Kylo Ren, all great bad guys. And you root for them. You kind of root for them. But for my number 3, Star Wars 1980, The Empire Strikes Back, is one of my favorite 80s movies. Now, you're like, well, what's the top 2, Ryan? The first one's a 1987 movie. And I realized I actually have 3 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies on this list. But Commando is probably actually my 3rd favorite. Terminator is my 2nd favorite of the 80s. And my number 1 has to be The Predator, coming in at number 2. Just an awesome, great movie. You got some badass dudes in the jungle with some badass guns fighting a badass enemy that is just killing everybody. Schwarzenegger, Carl, I forget what his name is. Jesse the Body Ventura is in here. Shane Black makes an appearance. If you don't know who Shane Black is, you may want to look him up because he's made some movies in his lifetime. But this is just all around a great action sci-fi movie. It's probably one of the best of the 80s. And it comes in at number 2, The Predator. So, what's number 1? I mean, if you look at the thumbnail, it's Back to the Future. Nothing can be said more than 1985's Back to the Future. I know it's missing the rest of the car, but to me, Back to the Future is a perfect movie. Storyline is perfect. The acting is perfect. The music is perfect. The dialogue is perfect. Everything about it is perfect. And it can't be beat. I mean, I'd hate to see what would have happened if they would have made this with Stoltz. I'm glad Michael J. Fox was able to be put into this. Tim and Christopher Lloyd, their chemistry is just great. And it's just an all-around great movie. Even 2 and 3. I think 2 and 3 are great too. But for my number 1, my favorite movie of the 80s, we're going to go again with 1985's Back to the Future. And that's going to do it. That is my top 25 for Tim's top 25 movies of the 80s list. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, follow the link down below to Tim's video. Watch it, learn the rules, find out how you can get a hold of them. If you want to comment on this video and put your list in my comments, go ahead. I will get it to Tim. But please, please join this community. Help out. Get these lists in there and be a part of something great. It's going to be a fun time. But this is where I'm going to end it. Ryan, Movies with Ryan. That's been my top 25 80s movies. Till I see you again, have a fantastic night.